years. And at one point, I was doing long-term care assessments in Petitcodiac, Salisbury. So coming here in the last couple of weeks has been kind of a reunion for me because I was in and out of Spencer's several times in the past. For the last several years, I've been working at central office, doing some training across the province to your colleagues, to social workers that work with the department. And the different types of training is about prevention of adult abuse and neglect, and adult protection for our staff, how to do investigations, long-term care assessments, disability support program, and anything else that kind of falls under that umbrella. We're going to be here together for 3 hours. I was here 3 times in the last 2 weeks, so this is my 4th time. And I had the opportunity to meet a lot of your colleagues. So by the end of the 3 hours, I'll know all of your names, okay? So that's my test for me. We'll go through the little agenda and I'll explain what we're going to be doing for the next 3 hours. This is your session. If you have questions, please ask them because someone else in the room probably has the same question. And if you're not understanding something, it's because I'm not explaining it right. So ask and I'll try to clarify. Now they have me hooked up to this because they're trying to tape and I don't know how successful it's been, but that's what they've asked me to do. So I'm not used to this, so if something happens, anyway, I'm trying my very best. So the reason I'm here, I guess, is it's a provincial program that was developed to come and have a conversation with the individuals that are the most important individuals in Madame Leblanc's life. Madame Leblanc is the resident that resides here at Spencer's. When I talk about Madame Leblanc, and you'll see that I talk about Madame Leblanc throughout the session, is Madame Leblanc, Monsieur Cormier, Arthur, Sophie, whoever lives here at Spencer's. This is their home. So Madame Leblanc is like a little fictional character that I've been built in my mind, but you all know her very well. So we're meeting with you because you are the people that are her eyes, her ears, her voice, and you represent Madame Leblanc very well. And you are the caregivers for the most vulnerable adults in New Brunswick. We're also you're part of today we're a big group, but you're also part of a bigger group. I think I've met approximately 150 of your colleagues. Today, I'm going to say 40. Plus, we go across the province giving these presentations, so that means that we're part of a bigger group talking about prevention, doing prevention, and you're going to see the wonderful work that you do on a day-to-day basis every time you have an intervention with Madame Leblanc. You're doing prevention work. So, you're going to see how wonderful you guys are doing throughout the 3-hour session. So, before we start really in the curriculum, I'd like to know who I'm talking with. I'd like to know who you are, what kind of job you do for Madame Leblanc when you come and work in her home, and how long you've been here, because if I look around, I'm sure there's hundreds of years of expertise in this room, thousands of years in the whole Spencer's community, and I think it's fantastic that we celebrate those strengths. So who wants to be the bravest of the group and say, hi, my name is Jeanette Leblanc, and I am and this is the type of work that I do with Madame Leblanc. Oh, thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Beth Harper, and I'm an LPN, and I work in rehab support at Spencer's, and I've been here for 30 years.
Good job. Okay, so what does that mean for Madame Leblanc?
It means if she's able to get up on her feet, I'm going to get her up on her feet. If she's not, I'm going to help the OT pick out a proper wheelchair for her. If she needs a specialized mattress, I'll be involved with that as well.
Super. So that means that your team, I'm assuming that there's other people on your team?
There's another lady on my team.
Okay.
And plus outside sources.
Cool. So you are very important in Madame Leblanc's life. So if something happens to her, you try to make sure that she's able to rehab and re-able and go back to where she was. And if not, readjust her way of life so that she can have quality of life. Yeah. Super wonderful. Thank you for being here. By the way, I love the colors. And if I notice those colors, Madame Leblanc notices those colors too. It brightens her day. Who else?
Come on.
Ah, lady over there, two ladies. Okay, take your, whichever.
Heather Wheaton, I'm an RN,
Yes?
and I do RN work.
So,
I've been here
if,
for about 10 years.
cool. So if I have no idea what RN work does, what does RN work is?
It means that when the resident comes here, I'm in charge of assessing her needs
Super.
and dealing with the family and making sure that the family has their needs and the residents' needs met.
Super
Thank you.
wonderful. Other people that do this work? Cool. Okay. So that's a fantastic job because you are the people that get to know Madame Leblanc. You assess her needs to make sure that you understand what her needs are, that we can meet her needs here, and if we can't, then we bring in people who can. So it's very important to assess Madame Leblanc. So you guys have a super important job. Thank you for that job. This lady right here.
My name is Beth Anson. I'm an RA and I've been here for 9 years.
So what does an RA do?
Make sure they get their food and have clean pads and are looked after.
Super. Do you do personal care also?
Yes.
Who else does personal care here? Wow, okay, a lot of people with that expertise. This is super important because if anything should happen to Madame Leblanc, the people that do personal care with Madame Leblanc, you are the people that are going to notice in terms of behaviors, in terms of indicators, if something should happen to her, etc. because you know Madame Leblanc very, very well. Everybody here, I'm assuming, knows Jean-Guy from the kitchen? Okay. Well, Madame Leblanc, at one point, had a complaint about his lemon muffins, okay? We'll talk about those. Jean-Guy knows we've been talking about him since I've been here. So we're going to be talking about her muffins. And the cool thing is she trusts you with the muffins, she's going to trust you with something else. We'll get back to that. Super important job because you are the people that develop a relationship with Madame Leblanc. Personal care is very intimate. It's you need to do gymnastics to develop a rapport with Madame Leblanc. So congratulations on that and thank you for the wonderful work that you do. Okay, who else? What kind of other work happens here at Spencer's? Okay, thank you.
My name is Lisa Burke. I've been here for 4 years. I'm a housekeeper and my job is to clean rooms.
Super wonderful. Anybody else that does that work? Good job. Okay, what about maintenance? Okay, we're going to be singing for you guys this afternoon. You guys deserve a medal. Everybody here deserves a medal. But if we don't have the foundation to take care of Madame Leblanc's house, to maintain with maintenance and to make sure that everything is spick and span, everything crumbles. So thank you for making sure that Madame has lighting, that she has a safe place, that things are clean, and that you have the opportunity to know what she wants. So we're going to be singing for you. Thank you. It's one way of getting you back here after the break. Anybody else? What kind of other work happens here? Yes?
Hi, I'm Nancy Carter, and I work in the laundry, and I wash the residents' clothes.
Super wonderful. I
28
wanted
years.
8 years. I wanted to 28. Wow. Okay. So you're the lady with your team. Anybody else that works with this lady? Here? No, but I meant other. There's other.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. Okay. The other day I was here and there was this lady, Madame Leblanc. I don't know her real name, and she had her 3 kitties that had just come from grooming. That she told me. These were her babies that came back from laundry. They were all fluffy and clean, and they smelled really good. And she had all of them with her wheelchair, and she was petting them. And we had the opportunity to talk with her babies. So those are extra things that you guys do to make Madame Leblanc feel well and welcome and home. That's her home. So thank you for that. The other thing is laundry. There might be some indicators of sexual abuse that you could observe, and we're going to talk about that. So thank you for being here and thank you for that job. What kind of other work do we do here?
Kitchen.
Kitchen. Okay, with Jean-Guy?
Yeah.
Lemon muffins?
Well, sometimes.
Okay, all right.
My name is Julie, and I've been here 11 years, and I help serve up food and prepare some of the food.
Super wonderful. So you're part of the team that feeds Madame Leblanc, make sure that Madame Leblanc's nutrition is going in her, and that she has a balanced diet, and that she has her needs met and also some of her wants. And we know that there's certain things, I heard that there was Smelt Day the other day, and there's special kind of days going on, and someone does some baking and it smells good when I walk around, so people seem to be happy. So thank you for that. And giving her her food and being part of her life that way. Cool. What else do we do here? What about setting rules and regulations? Huh? Okay, management. Management was in and out for the last 3 sessions. Okay, I don't know if they're coming in today. And sometimes we get frustrated. I have management in my job. I have a boss. Sometimes we get frustrated a little bit with management. We don't always understand all the rules and regulations and policies. But at the end of the day, it's really important to maintain calm and organization in a big facility. So I guess we need to support them also. Okay. What other type of jobs? Someone payroll here? Someone pay you guys? No? Yes? Those are very important people, okay? So, I've been here 4 times since last week, and I've observed a lot of cool, positive things. And while I'm waiting, and I can see people walking around, smiling, talking to the birds, talking to the residents. People are singing, people are humming. You wear bright colors. So if I'm noticing those cool things, Madame Leblanc notices those things too. And I'm sure we'll be talking about other things that you do that is super fantastic, and you'll be able to share that with the rest of the group here. A couple of things that I do want to mention is usually Huguette Alain, who maybe you see her as an inspector, but she's a nurse. She comes in and she does the inspections here, I think once a year. She was supposed to be here, but something happened, she couldn't be here today. She wanted you to know that your last inspection was A++, 5 stars, so that's fantastic work on your part. So good job. So I want to celebrate that with you this morning. So cool. Okay, you'll notice I have gum. It's just that I find it really dry in here, and I get this dry cough, and it's not because I want to be rude, but it's the only way I can talk. Okay? Anybody else? Any other type of job that we want to mention today? LPN?
LPNs represent, well, I'll represent as adult LPN, when I used to work on the floor.
Okay,
I did personal care and passed medications,
perfect,
blood pressure, sure.
perfect. So our medical needs are being taken care of. We're going to be talking about medication mismanagement, and I know that it's not as prevalent here, but in other types of facilities, we're seeing a lot of medication mismanagement. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Okay. Questions before we start? All right. You have a little pamphlet in front of you, and in that pamphlet there's the agenda. We're going to go through that in a minute. There's also myths and facts. It's a little quiz. And the quiz, I give you the answers, so we're not going to do that. The reason I gave you the quiz is to open up the conversation. The only thing I'm going to be asking you to do when you leave is continue the conversation we're going to be having today. So I gave a lot of homework to the administration, okay, in the last sessions. So everything that I'm going to, you don't even have to take notes because you're going to have this. You're going to have the movies we're going to be seeing. You're going to have a copy of the song we're going to be singing. You're going to have everything, okay? So you can just sit and enjoy, and I know that you're not used to sitting for 3 hours, so if you fall asleep, it's okay. Won't tell anybody, and you'll come back when you're ready. We already have some people, okay, that's good. All right, so because I see you guys, if you could have rollerblades, I'm sure that it would be faster. You guys run all day, you take care of everybody except for yourselves, okay? So it's important that I recognize that. And if you get sleepy, don't fight it, it's okay, you'll come back when you wake up, okay? What else did I want to tell you? Okay, so the quiz. After that, there's a little booklet in there. It's called the Indicators of Abuse and Neglect. We're going to be talking about those. I could be here for a week to talk about indicators, but we're going to go through them. The reason I gave you a package is I would like you to, again, to follow the conversation or continue the conversation. The more we know about the indicators, the better equipped we are to take care of Madame Leblanc, and the better equipped we are to notice if anything has occurred to Madame Leblanc. Okay? And I think the last little document is the phone numbers if ever you feel that you need to make a referral at Adult Protection. That's our telephone numbers. That's how we can be reached. Okay. Perfect. The agenda, we're going to be looking at Adult Protection Mandate. What does that mean? Okay, the definition, profile of the victim, who could be abused or neglected, profile of the abuser, who could be the abuser of Madame Leblanc, the different types of abuse and neglect here that we under our act in New Brunswick can deal with, and the indicators of abuse and neglect. After that, we'll have a video that will kind of summarize everything we talked about, and then we'll have a break. Then we'll come and we'll sing. And then we'll look at us in terms of people that deal with Madame Leblanc on a day-to-day basis, that do intervention. You do intervention 100 times a day, okay, without even noticing. And we're going to look at what happens here in the facility and how we can prevent when there's things that could occur. So we're going to look at precipitating factors, violence in residential facilities. I'll give you provincial statistics, so just so you know where you stand. Relationship of trust between Madame Leblanc and you. Our role and responsibility of reporting abuse and neglect. Prevention mechanisms and vision for a collective response. So we're going to do that in a 3-hour period. Okay? All right. Questions before we start? So just so you know, we can situate ourselves, is that in the province of New Brunswick, there's 65 nursing homes, like this one, and there's 500 residential facilities, like level 1, level 2, and community residences, okay? So you're part of a great number of individuals who care specifically for the most vulnerable adults in our society, okay? So I wanted you to situate yourself regarding that. So what is the mandate of adult protection? Oh, again. Okay. I have my Family Services Act in a binder because it's all anyway, mixed up. So what happens is we have a law here in New Brunswick that has the mandate to protect vulnerable adults. And we'll give you a definition of vulnerable adults in a couple of minutes. So the Family Services Act is the act in New Brunswick that also protects children and vulnerable adults. So, for vulnerable adults, we have adult protection under subsections 34.1 to 42.2. You don't have to remember that, but you can, tomorrow you can say, well, a lady came and told us there's a section, okay? And that's the section under the act. So what it tells us is that if we believe an adult is abused or neglected or have reason to believe, we must investigate. So, I need to define what is an adult, all right? So there's 2 categories of adult that falls under the adult protection program. We have Madame Leblanc, who's 65 and older. So as soon as we get a referral that Madame Leblanc, we believe she's abused or neglected, we must investigate. So that's one category, okay? Now, whether Madame Leblanc lives in the hospital, in her home in the community, in her home here, or in a special care home, we must investigate. I'm talking New Brunswick, okay? The other category for vulnerable adults is from 19 years old to 65 or 64, let's say Dave, 65, okay? Adults with a disability. That the disability causes that person to be dependent on another person to meet their needs. So the Sophies that live here that has Down syndrome, or that have cognitive impairment, or who has severe mental health issues, or cognitive abnormalities, or physical impairment. Okay? So you have 19 to 64 with a disability, and you have 65 plus disability or not. Did I explain it okay in terms of categories? Okay. So, if we have reason to suspect that Madame Leblanc or Sophie or Arthur is being abused and neglected and falls under the categories of adult protection, we must investigate. So when I say we, I'm talking about the Department of Social Development. The Department of Social Development has the mandate to investigate adult protection. Now the ministry doesn't have the opportunity to investigate, so they assigned social workers in every region that come in and do investigations. So you would be attached to the Moncton region here. Okay, there's 8 different regions in the province. When I talk about the provincial law, I mean that not in every province of Canada that there's a law that exists that protects adults, vulnerable adults. Some do, some don't, and some rely on the police to protect vulnerable adults. Some provinces look to New Brunswick to see what we're doing and how we're caring for Madame Leblanc and how they can improve their situation to kind of see what we're doing here. Any questions about that so far? Okay. I want to talk about a little bit for child protection, then I'll come back to adult protection because I want to make a point. Child protection, anybody, any citizen, okay, in the province of New Brunswick that believes or suspects or knows that a child is being abused or neglected must report. We have a legal mandate as a citoyen to report child protection. Okay, did you know that? Okay. For adults, okay, there is no mandatory reporting. It means even if we know, we suspect, we see, we observe, we can, but we don't have to. Did you know that? No? Okay. So, there's kind of a clause, okay? Because you and I work under the umbrella of social development and we're trusted with the lives of Madame Leblanc and she's dependent upon us to meet her needs, the department signed a contract under the protocols, and Lynn is going to make Lynn McPhee, okay, is going to make photocopies so that you can have access to this at any time, and it's in our, it's on the website. So it's a protocol that was signed between us, the Department of Social Development, the police, the nursing home, the special care homes, the hospital, the paramedics, who else? Public safety. Because those individuals, like us, see things and are responsible to meet Madame Leblanc's needs. So the department felt that it was important that we have a moral responsibility to report. Does that make sense to you? Am I explaining it okay? So, I'm going to give an example. Suppose my husband works in the construction business, okay? And he and I know that Madame Leblanc, who lives next door, is being abused or neglected or we suspect, okay? Because of the work that we do, or I do, I have a responsibility to report. A moral responsibility. The department makes me accountable to report. My husband, because he's in the construction industry, does not have that same moral obligation. Doesn't mean he can't or he won't. It's just that he doesn't have to, and if he doesn't, there won't be any repercussions on him. Now we have people calling in. I'm just saying that that's what the law says. Did I explain that okay? Is that clear for you? Okay. So because we work in this métier, in this type of work, these are the things that we're responsible for. Questions about that? Okay. Again, if you have questions, please ask them because other people in the room might have the same questions. And if I'm not explaining it right, if you don't understand, it's because I'm not explaining it right. And I'll try to do my best to explain it another way. So who could be the potential victim? What we do know throughout studies across New Brunswick, Canada, internationally, because we look at those studies and come up with our reports, we know that the people that are most vulnerable to become abused or neglected are older adults, females, individuals who are isolated, dependent adults with disabilities, adults with reduced cognitive capacity, like Madame Leblanc who has Alzheimer, okay? Adults who caregivers have a drug or alcohol problem. Because what happens with this, if I am a caregiver and I have an alcohol or drug or gaming problem, because of my personal difficulties, my personal illness, I will meet my needs prior to meeting Madame Leblanc's needs. Can you see that? Okay. So it increases the risk for Madame Leblanc. So what we're seeing on a national and international scale is that the more Madame Leblanc has a need, that her needs are high, the more that she is dependent upon other people to meet those needs, the more she's at risk of being abused or neglected. Can you follow my dots? Okay. So the Madame Leblancs that come in here, for people that, and I'll come back to that, but for people that, you know your Madame Leblanc, know that she's very vulnerable. She needs you for personal care, to share, to give her meals. Sometimes she needs us to help her with her meals directly. We need to do medication management. We need to basically meet all of her needs. So her level of care are high. Her needs need to be met by us. So the higher they are, the more it becomes the potential of abuse or neglect. Any questions about this? So who are the abusers? In my mind, I would really like that the abuser is someone that comes out of the woods for 5 minutes, hurts someone and goes back, okay? But that's not how the situation works. When we look at statistics, when we look at studies across Canada, internationally, across New Brunswick, we know that the abusers are Madame Leblanc's family. Ginette, her daughter, okay? That is an abuser. We know that it could be a friend. Ginette, Madame Leblanc's neighbor, who goes there occasionally to visit. Caregiver, Ginette, that cares for Madame Leblanc, who does her shift here on Tuesday afternoons, okay? Landlord, Ginette, that owns Madame Leblanc's apartment building. And facility staff, again, Ginette. So those are things, these are the individuals on a high level, when I talk plus 90% of the time, that are the abusers or neglectors of Madame Leblanc. Okay? Did I explain that okay? I know we don't want to hear this, but this is a reality. Okay? What are the types of abuse and neglect? So we're going to go through each type, and I'm going to give you some examples of indicators for each type. Like I said, we could be here for days, but you have observed on a regular basis the different types of indicators. So, under the Family Services Act, these are the types of abuse, except for this one, we'll come back to that, the financial types of abuse that we are able to investigate. So psychological, emotional abuse. When I intimidate, when I scream at, when I call Madame Leblanc names, when I degrade her, when I take things away from her, that's considered emotional or psychological abuse. What are the things that I could be doing that would be emotional and psychological abuse? Ignore her, that's a really good one, thank you.
Locking her in a room.
Walking her in a room, locking her in a room, absolutely. That's a really good one, thank you. Telling her she's unable to go to Mass today for whatever reason, okay? No specific reason, just because I decide to, okay? Taking her things away from her, not allowing her to see her family or her friends, isolating her. So that's a type of abuse or neglect that we're able to investigate. Now, the indicators of psychological and emotional abuse, because you know Madame Leblanc so well, okay, because you have contacts with her on a regular basis, you're able to tell if there's something that's not going right with Madame Leblanc. And most of the time, you can decide if she's only having a bad moment or a bad day. We all have those. So maybe she's just having a bad moment, bad day, we turn things around and she's fine. But indicators of psychological and emotional abuse could be she stops eating, she's not sleeping, she's having nightmares, she's afraid when Jeanette comes into the room, or she's crying after Jeanette left the room, Jeanette being her family, her caregiver, her whoever, okay? She has stomach aches, she wants to go to the hospital a lot, but there's nothing really physically wrong with her, psychosomatic, okay? So those are the types of indicators. Now, you know her so well that you know as soon as something would happen, that would be an indicator and you would ask questions. For indicators are bells, okay? It doesn't mean that that's what it is. It just means that it's an indicator that gets us to ask questions. All of a sudden you see that Madame Leblanc's crying. She's depressed. She doesn't want to come out anymore of her room. She's afraid of Jeanette. You see those things because you know her so well that you're going to be asking questions. Those are the indicators that you're observing. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Physical abuse is when I hit, slap, push, I grab, I break, Madame Leblanc, I spit, I bite, Madame Leblanc. And I'm sure there's other examples. Okay? That's physical abuse. Indicators of physical abuse. People that do personal care, sometimes when there's physical abuse, there's bruising on the body. So the people that do personal care, you're so good at asking about the bruising that you know if it's a normal bruise for Madame Leblanc, and I'll explain that, or if it's something unusual. I don't mean that bruising is normal. I just mean normal for Madame Leblanc, because you're going to tell me Madame Leblanc's on Coumadin or Zafarin, I don't know what all the medications are, là, and she bruises easily. As soon as she bumps, like she just has to touch her hand on a chair and then there's a bruise. But you know her so well that you know exactly if that is normal for Madame Leblanc or if something else happened. Now, if we come back to the muffin, okay? Suppose you were giving her her bath a couple of weeks ago and she told you that she really doesn't like the lemon muffins that Jean-Guy and his colleagues do on Tuesdays, okay? And you tell her, well, you know what, Madame Leblanc, I know Jean-Guy and I know his crew, so I'll go check with him and see if we can do something about that lemon muffin. What kind of muffins would you like? I'd like strawberry. Okay. So you go to Jean-Guy and Jean-Guy says, yeah, okay, I can do strawberry muffins versus the lemon muffins for Madame Leblanc. Bon. So now on Tuesday, she has the strawberry muffin versus the lemon muffin. I know for us it's not that important, okay? But the fact that you listened to her request, the fact that you acted upon her request, that you made the changes necessary and that she's happy about the strawberry muffin, you've developed that relationship, okay? So if something else would happen to Madame Leblanc, physical, sexual, psychological, any type of abuse, because you have that relationship with her, she's going to be telling you. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's my story about the lemon muffin. Physical abuse is when we see marks on Madame Leblanc, we see types of bruising on Madame Leblanc. What else could we see on Madame Leblanc? Marks on non-ambulatory residents, that would be an indicator. It doesn't mean it's abuse or neglect, but it's something that would ring a bell. All of a sudden we have, you and I are working, okay? We worked last night, bon. And we had an accident with Madame Leblanc. We're taking her up. Hello? Come on in. We had an accident with Madame Leblanc, okay? We did her transfer and all of a sudden we drop her. I fell and we drop her and then of course, crisis, okay? You're crying, I'm crying, Madame Leblanc's crying, everybody's crying. But, so what happened, we have Madame Leblanc verified, make sure she's okay, and then we make sure we're okay, and the important thing is, we need to document the incident, because tomorrow morning, when this lovely lady comes in and does personal care, and there's a bruise here on Madame Leblanc, her bells are going to go up, right? So, if we haven't documented and we don't know what happened, she's going to be ringing the bells, and she's going to ask Madame Leblanc, and she'll start her own investigation. So that's important, why documentation, because accidents do happen. So that's very important when we look at physical or any type of abuse. That makes sense to you? Okay. We talked about you guys a little bit before you came in.
Hi, late as always.
But that's okay, at least you're here. We talked about management, setting up rules, regulation, policies, and memos that sometimes we don't like, but we try to understand why. Also maybe for everybody, if you could introduce yourselves for 2 minutes, and then we'll continue with the indicators.
Okay, so I'm the Director of Care here. My name is Lynn McPhee. I think everyone sitting kind of knows me. I'm somewhat new to the position, came in April, and have the best staff ever. They care so much for the residents. They put it out there every day, and they're the reasons that our residents are happy and excited with what's going on for the day, all of the programs. These are the ones that have their hands in it.
Yes. And I was telling them that their inspection was A+, 5 stars.
Inspection was fantastic, and that has to do with the care.
Yeah, and that's excellent. So we celebrated that before you came in.
I'm glad you did.
Okay.
They deserve a big round of applause.
Yes, they do.
Great work.
The other thing is I told them that I've been giving you homework for our last sessions, and so they don't have to take notes or anything, that you're the one doing things after these sessions. Okay.
Hi, I'm Victor Shea. Most of you, some of you, maybe a couple of you know who I am. I'm the new executive director, so the new Barbara Cook. Those who haven't met yet, I apologize that I haven't. I've been here since December 5th in this role, and some of my friends here are laughing at me, but that's okay. She understands why. She's laughing at me. I'm quite excited to be here. Those of you who know, I've been out on the floor getting to know you folks quite a bit. I'm quite appreciative of everybody that's here. You're all very good, excellent workers. This is things like today, and events and education happens like today. There's no reflection on staff not doing the job that they're hired to do. You folks do great work here, and that's obvious. And the impact we're having on the care is second to none, I would argue. My job is to make your job easier, as you know. And I've said this to some of you, have heard me talk already. The little things that I did last week during the storms were done because I value who you are as people and value what you bring to the table. My job is not to do your job for you, of course. My job is to help you just be that much better and make Spencer Home the place people want to come to work. And I think we've done a lot of good things in the last 2 or 3 months. Thank you all for being as kind as you have been. For those who I introduced myself to you 3 or 4 or 5 times, it's nothing to do with your memories, more to do with my lack of having one. And again, I'm happy to be here, and I've heard good things about the presentation. I'm glad I got to get here. We were just meeting Mr. Walker here and having some discussions about his impressions, and he's also got some really strong impressions, all positive, about what's being done in this building. So that's a credit to every one of you in the room, regardless of stripe, RA, LP, or RN, or housekeeping, maintenance, or otherwise. Everybody has a role to play in providing services to these 200 people in their house, which is where we're working presently. So thank you for everything you've done and will do, and for those who aren't Comedy Club fans, I welcome you on board. That was meant for my friend over there.
I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. It's the fact that it's teamwork here, and everybody here has super important role to play. We talked about Huguette, who comes in here once in a while. Well, Huguette is unable to be here, and Tim is able to be here, so maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit, Monsieur Walker.
Good afternoon, my name is Tim Walker. I'm the regional supervisor for nursing home services for the Department of Social Development. And so I supervise your liaison officer, who is Huguette Anand. So this is the first opportunity I've had to come to Spencer's. I welcomed the opportunity when Victor and Lynn invited me to attend a session for the Adult Protection Services. And so I'm really happy to be here this afternoon. I've known Jeanette for quite some years, and I know that she's an excellent teacher, so I hope that you have a great session. And I want to thank you for all the hard work that you guys do. Victor mentioned it, and so did Lynn. And I hear that information, or I hear those comments from Get when I speak with her. When she comes here and when I meet with her afterwards, she constantly tells me how great Spencer's is and how happy she is to be working with all of you. So I encourage you to continue the great work.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, Tim has taught me everything that I know, so if it's good, great. If it's not good, okay. No, it's just that we've worked together for a long time. All right, so physical abuse, we're clear on that. What kind of indicators could be physical abuse? All right, so people that do personal care, you are the people that will notice that on Madame Leblanc, and she will disclose to you because of the story of the yellow muffin, lemon muffin. Okay. Sexual abuse. What is sexual abuse? Sexual abuse is inappropriate sexual comments, inappropriate sexual touching, sexual intercourse, sexual relationships, sexual anything, okay, towards Madame Leblanc. Now, I just want to make something clear. Madame Leblanc is an adult. Madame Leblanc is a consenting adult. Madame Leblanc is a competent adult. Madame Leblanc has the right to have the sexual relationship that she wants to have, okay? Having that said, Madame Leblanc wants to have a sexual relationship with me, Ginette, who works here, okay, on Tuesday afternoon. But the responsibility lies on me as a caregiver that if I get involved in the sexual relationship with Madame Leblanc and I cross that line, because I am her caregiver, because I'm in a position of trust, because there's an imbalance of power between me and her, I become an abuser. You're going to say I know that, but I'm paid to say it, so I just said it. Bon. So, sexual abuse indicators. For people that work in laundry, okay, if all of a sudden you see in Madame Leblanc's underwear, okay, blood, stains, on her bed sheets, those could be indicators of sexual abuse. Redness, for people that do personal care, redness around the genital area. Doesn't mean that it's sexual abuse, but it rings bells, okay? All of a sudden inappropriate behaviors for Madame Leblanc. Excessive masturbation for Madame Leblanc. All of a sudden Madame Leblanc's pregnant, rings bells, okay? Those are indicators of abuse or neglect. Well, doesn't mean that it's abuse or neglect or sexual abuse, but we have to look into it. Now, I use Madame Leblanc for the pregnant, but we do have a Sophie that lives here who's 30 and could become pregnant. So maybe she has a healthy sexual relationship with someone else and something happened and now she's pregnant, fine. But bells are going to be ringing if Sophie or Madame Leblanc becomes pregnant in your facility, right? You're going to be asking questions. Bon. Okay. All right, so sexual abuse. Any questions about sexual abuse? We're clear on that one. Okay. Financial abuse and exploitation, I'll get back to that in a couple of minutes. Chemical abuse or medication mismanagement. What that means is I, as a caregiver, give Madame Leblanc too much medication, or inappropriate medication, or not enough medication, or I'm her caregiver and I take her pain medication for myself, okay? Here in the nursing home, because everything is so calculated, you have to document everything. There's a protocol on who gives their medication, how is dispensed, you have to be kept under lock, etc. We're not seeing as much medication mismanagement. Sometimes we see errors, and it's documented, taken care of, and that's good. In other types of facilities, or when we have Madame Leblanc living in her home in the community, we have a lot more of chemical abuse than we would recognize here. Okay? So the indicators for Madame Leblanc is all of a sudden she's getting too much medication and she's stoned. Or Ginette, who's taking her pain medication, is stoned. Okay? Those are indicators. We have to look at what's happening. All of a sudden, bells are going to be ringing and you're going to be questioning. So that's what indicators are for and what they're about. Okay? We see medication mismanagement in the community. I don't know if people that have been here for a long time, I'm going to talk to you about indicators of medication mismanagement for when I would go out and do assessment, long-term care assessments on Madame Leblanc in her home, prior to her coming in here. So I would go out to Madame Leblanc and I would ask her if she could show me her medication. So that way it gave me the opportunity to see her mobility, see her cognitive capacities, and she would come up with this beautiful red bowl full of medication in there. So I'd started to get some flags, right? But then she'd sit down with me and go through the medication. She understood each one. She could read the label. She knew when to take it, and everything was fine. Then I'd go to Madame Cormier's, same red bowl, but she didn't have, everything was mixed up. She couldn't understand what to do with all of the medication. So there was indicators of medication mismanagement, right? All of a sudden, a couple of years later, the pharmacist came up with this beautiful idea, the bubble packs. Everybody knows about bubble packs? Okay. So as social workers, we thought, this is fantastic, wonderful. You as medical professional, you already knew that there was going to be some difficulties, but we're a little bit slower on that side. We thought this was going to fix the whole problem. So Madame Leblanc shows me her bubble packs, everything is wonderful. I go at Madame Cornier's, she has the bubble packs, I think everything is great, and I start noticing that the bubbles are pierced in different locations, okay? So, and half of the pills are missing, the other half, so those are indication of medication mismanagement. I know you're all, we're all connected to family, and we do have families somehow in our community. So if you see those indicators, maybe Madame Leblanc needs help to manage your medication. Okay? Questions about medication mismanagement, chemical abuse? Oui.
You talked about the 65 homes. I'm not worried about the 65 homes, but the 500
Yes.
plus homes that are level 1 and 2 independently owned, mom and pop shops, I call them. They have individuals that work there that have no unregulated care providers that pass medications to these residents
Yes.
on a daily basis. What's the position of the department? Or is there a policy?
There's regulations or standards around that under the ARF standards. They're being reviewed because we certainly have some concerns. There is a protocol that needs to be followed, but you're right. There's some indication that we have indication that there's an increase of medication mismanagement. Now, the difference between Madame Leblanc in a level 2 facility and a Madame Leblanc in a level 3 nursing home facility is that here she requires nursing care or supervision of nursing care. In a ARF facility, I'm calling it adult residential facility level 2, okay, she might have cognitive difficulties, she might have physical, but her medical condition is stable. So her medical needs are not as complex as for the Madame Leblanc that resides here. But thank you for that point because we're certainly looking into it. And we've had the same question, I think the 3 other sessions. So your concerns are bang on and we certainly are aware of them and we're looking at qualifications for staff that work in those facilities, and we're also looking at making sure that we have parameters around medication and management. Cool. Other questions about that? But that's a really serious concern. Neglect and self-neglect. Neglect is when I, Ginette, the caregiver, neglects Madame Leblanc, either by not providing personal care, not providing her meals, her medication, a facility, a clean facility, okay? A workable facility where she's safe. So neglect is when I, as a caregiver, neglect Madame Leblanc. Self-neglect is when Madame Leblanc neglects herself for whatever reason. So we're going to go and give you some examples on both of them. Now the indicators most of the time are the same, okay? One of the indicators that I want to identify is that bed sores or pressure sores would be an indicator of neglect or self-neglect. It doesn't mean that it is, but it's an indicator. That's why we have protocols here. You're very good at that. As soon as you see a little redness on Madame Leblanc somewheres, you're taking care of it, right? You have protocols you're following, you have a treatment plan, you have creams, you have every bells and whistle taking care of the situation to make sure that it doesn't erupt into anything else. Am I right when I say that? That's what I'm hearing, okay? So neglect indicators would be Madame Leblanc would have poor hygiene, her medication would be mixed up, she wouldn't be receiving what she needs, she would be confused, etc. When we neglect Madame Leblanc, again, is when we do not provide the necessities of life and quality of life for Madame Leblanc. When she neglects herself, I'm going to give you examples in the community, and I'm going to give you examples here. Examples in the community would be, for example, Madame Leblanc, who lives in a old home that has no electricity. I'm going to exaggerate, but you know who I'm talking about. Okay, we all have those Madame Leblancs in our communities. She has no electricity. She lives away from the main road. She lives by herself. She only comes out at night. She is dressed in layers. She's all dirty. Everybody talks about her being weird or different. She has 47 cats. There's feces and fleas in there, okay? Those Madame Leblanc need help, okay? There's reasons why she's in this type of situation. So there's usually an underlying issue of either cognitive impairment, physical impairment, medication mismanagement, so we're able to go in and investigate. So give us a call, we'll go see if she needs help. The other type of situation would be Arthur, who has schizophrenia. Arthur, at this time, is stable, has schizophrenia, he has a part-time job, he has a nice little bachelor apartment, he's managing, he's well medicated, things are going fine for him. All of a sudden, with that type of illness, as soon as everybody's stable, okay, someone with schizophrenia decides to take their medication, they don't need the medication anymore. So they take the medication, they stop taking their medication. When they stop taking their medication, they start hallucinating again, they start hearing voices again. They start to self-medicate by drugs, alcohol, whatever they can find, okay? They lose their home, they're unable to maintain their job anymore, and they become homeless. So we see those Arthurs on our streets, so it's important that you give us a shout and see if we can go help, to make sure that he's meeting his needs. Sometimes people that are homeless are able to meet their needs, so they're not necessarily at risk, but sometimes they're unable to, and we need to intervene to assist. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to talk about self-neglect here in your facility, and you all know this Madame Leblanc. Madame Leblanc has glasses, dentures, and a hearing aid. Okay? You know that, Madame Leblanc? All right. Every morning when you do her personal care, you put the dentures, the glasses, and the hearing aid. You turn around, 2 seconds later, the hearing aid's gone, the glasses are gone, and we can't find the dentures, right? There's gymnastics that go around trying to do that 15 times during the day to make sure that her needs are being met. The important thing here is to document, okay, the fact that you're trying. Because, remember her daughter, Jeanette, who lives in Ottawa and comes home once a year? You can make sure that that day when she comes, Mom won't have her dentures, her glasses, or her hearing aid. Because of indications of abuse or neglect, she's going to be calling us. Get that? Okay. So because there's indications of, we will come and look at your files, we'll do an investigation, we'll sit down with you, but then we notice that you're doing gymnastics every single day to make sure that Madame Leblanc's needs are being met. So what is important is that you document everything. And I think you have protocols around that. Okay. Now if we walk in here, I know that you have 200 residents here that live here at Spencer's. Now if there's 199 residents with no dentures, no glasses, and no hearing aid, then we're going to ask questions. But if there's one versus 199, okay, on a regular basis, you're doing a fantastic job. Questions, comments about that? Making sense so far? If I'm not making sense, let me know and I'll try to explain it better, okay? Financial abuse and exploitation. Under the Family Services Act, we do not have the mandate to investigate. That's the police that has the mandate to investigate. However, I'm going to give you the definition first. Definition of a financial abuse or exploitation is when someone, Jeanette, her daughter, Jeanette, her friend, Jeanette, her landlord, takes Madame Leblanc's money without her consent, or without her knowing, to meet my own needs. And I'm taking advantage of the situation that I have with her, okay, to meet my own needs financially. Now, we do not have that mandate to investigate. However, I would support and encourage you to contact us anyway, because if we can determine that there's financial abuse and there's psychological or emotional abuse, she's being threatened, or that because of the financial abuse she's being neglected, she doesn't have her medication, she doesn't have what she needs, she can't provide for herself, then we can investigate. We can investigate the other types of abuse, and we will get the police to help us with the financial abuse. So sometimes when you call and there's financial abuse only, it's not that I don't want to go, it's my hands are tied and I can't go, but if there's any other types of abuse or neglect, I will be able to go. Okay, so if you're not sure, give us a call and we'll walk you through with you. We'll look for other types of indicators. One indicator that I know that I'm calling them the financial team, but I really don't know what their name is the people that are in charge here of taking care of Madame Leblanc's allowance. She gets an allowance every month, okay? And all of a sudden we see Jeanette, her daughter, once a month come in, get her money, and leave. Okay, that's an indicator. It doesn't mean that that's what it is. Maybe Madame Leblanc wants her to buy something, maybe and that's what Jeanette does, but sometimes Jeanette takes that money and doesn't do anything for Madame Leblanc. So that would be an indicator. Okay? Questions, comments, clarifications about those types of abuse and neglect?
I'm Madame LeBlanc's caregiver, and I witnessed her son over the last 6 months saying things to her, demanding money, but she can't verbally express it to anyone else. She's lost her ability to speak.
Right.
What's my role? I should be reporting that to who? Your supervisor? Tell me.
Okay. I know that in nursing home there's a protocol, but the bottom line is that we need to have that information, or that as adult protection, that we can come and investigate. So somehow the information needs to come up to adult protection. So you can make a phone call, you can make an anonymous phone call, you can come and see us, or you can write a report. And I'm not sure what the protocols are, maybe Elaine or Victor can help us, in the nursing home. But the bottom line is whoever sees, okay, it's important that that information be given specifically. What are the protocols? Can you help me out with that for this nursing home?
Usually if there's some case, there's something that has come awry. We haven't seen that as far as, Wayne talking about the son coming in and taking money or, using some of that psychological abuse. But anything that does come to light, we automatically report to adult protection. We also involve our liaison officers so that they are aware
Yes.
there's an issue, and we look for that outside investigation and help to protect the residents.
So, but if Wayne is the one that sees it on the floor, okay? So what is his role?
I believe you would have to bring it to someone in a position of authority, whether it be a nursing supervisor, manager, or myself, and also have an obligation to report that to, I would not want him not to go to DSC, I think that's appropriate action to adult protection, but I want to be aware. This is happening to one of my residents as the executive director. I'm going to do my own investigation as well, as you can surely
Okay,
see.
and the
There's
other,
a two-pronged approach here, I think.
Okay.
We need to be aware as well.
the other thing is, to piggyback on what you're saying, Victor, sometimes Victor or this agency can stop Jeanette from coming earlier than adult protection can stop
Absolutely.
Jeanette from coming because of our workload or other priorities. So if you can protect her here while we are trying to protect other people in the community, then that's better. I don't know if I answered your question. Okay.
I've had to deal with adult protection for my daughter. She has paranoid schizophrenia.
Yes.
And it has not been easy getting adult protection on board until it became crucially impossible to have to deal with the situation.
Yes.
So, I'm just wondering, is it that much of a rigmarole if you were to get adult protection involved in a situation, physical, sexual, or neglect? do you have to go through a huge rigmarole like I had to go through?
No, and I'm assuming
help?
because your daughter had mental health and mental health was also involved. What happens with schizophrenia is difficult because they have to be homicidal or suicidal in order to go under Form 1.
Yeah, that was really, really tough.
No, it's very difficult. But yeah, no, to answer your question, the answer is no. Thank you for sharing.
What about a resident who, another resident is sexually abusing them?
Yes.
And we've mentioned it and not much happens, or they just move them to another unit?
Okay.
What are we supposed to do?
Well, when you notice things that you feel is not correct, again, we have to remember that Madame Leblanc has the right to have a sexual relationship with whoever she
This
wants.
is a resident who Madame Leblanc has no ability to tell you?
Yeah.
Or to stop what's happening, and someone is coming in and doing this to her, and then
Yes.
wandering off and going to do it to somebody
Yes.
else?
It's very important that you refer so that we can make sure we protect Madame Leblanc. And sometimes the person is moved to protect Madame Leblanc and also put parameters around the other person, okay?
But if they're not, if they're just being moved?
But we have to make sure as a team, okay, to put parameters around the other person to make sure that that person does not do anything else to any other residents. So it's very important that we work as a team, okay? And we're here to improve. So if we were doing things differently yesterday and we need to improve certain things, well, we're going to be doing things differently at our next shift. But that's a really good question. So anytime you feel that there's a sexual relationship that is not correct or that you're not feeling comfortable with, okay, have the conversation, give us a call, we'll walk you through and we'll make a decision in terms of is it adult protection or is it not adult protection. The department has a responsibility to determine if it's adult protection or not.
I was involved in a situation here at Spencer's quite a few years ago.
Right.
Where it was a male touching a male.
Yes.
And the male that was being touched was not able to express himself at all.
Were there indicators that you've noticed that were...
I mentioned it to my nurse, they moved the person off, not physically off the wing because he lived on the same wing, but they just moved him off the wing for that moment and it was never dealt with. But maybe it's because we weren't educated enough, like what to do. But in that case, that was a person that couldn't speak for himself and it was another man that was taking advantage.
Exactly. So that's where your role comes in because you know that if Arthur doesn't want to be touched by Jim, okay, that you need to intervene. Yeah, you did. And we need to work as a team to make sure that Jim doesn't harm anybody else, okay? Because whether it's between residents, whether it's between you and I, whether it's between me and a resident, we have to make sure that the person is well taken care of. So if there's any issues, we have to look at that. So bells were ringing, you did the right thing, and we should be working as a
I didn't know
team.
what happened from there, because I just left it in my supervisor's hands, and I don't know what happened from there.
Okay. In the future, ask questions, make sure that things are being done, and as a team, we work together to make sure that, I can't remember the first name, Arthur and Jim, both of them are taken care of. There's a question in the back.
We used to have a lady on one of the wings, her husband would come in and
Right.
sexually abuse her.
Right.
We took it to the nurses and we were told that because they're husband and wife, it doesn't fall under that category.
It does fall under that category, okay? And what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter what the relationship is, if you believe that Madame Leblanc is being sexually abused or Monsieur Leblanc is being sexually abused, you need to report that and we will look into it. Okay? Questions, comments?
What if it happened the other way around? Years ago, I got to watch him with a big man,
Yes.
and he was going after me.
Yes.
I mean, I screamed my lungs out.
Yes.
Finally, wanted to work.
Yes.
What do you do in a situation like that?
Yes. It's very important, again, to work as a team because violence is violence is violence is violence. It doesn't matter how the violence occurs, and you have a right to protect yourself. So if we have zero tolerance, we need to work as a team to make sure that you're protected when you're supposed to be giving Arthur his personal care. Thank God, okay, that someone helped you. So if you believe that there's potential for harm, make sure that you work as a team and that people are aware and that you're well protected, okay? We have some coming. I have a little video. Are you okay? Are there other questions or concerns? I guess the message that I want to give, if you're not comfortable with what's happening, bring it to your supervisors. We'll go from there. Sometimes we're not sure if it's abuse or neglect. They can give us a call. We'll walk you through. Sometimes it's not, and sometimes we don't have enough to warrant an investigation. That's okay. But if it doesn't feel right, you're not comfortable, give us a call. We work as a team. We're here to make sure Madame Leblanc is okay.
Just a clarification question, you keep saying, give us a call. Are you saying me, all of us? Or are you talking management?
It doesn't matter, as long as we have the information. What Victor was saying is, he would prefer to have you, okay, because there's a protocol, that he would be made aware so he can protect Madame Leblanc if need be before we are able to come. You can choose to report anonymously, you can choose to, but the more information we have, the more transparent we are, the more we work as a team, better equipped we're going to be to meet Madame Leblanc's needs.
And just to clarify with Wayne, I would want Wayne to call, or whoever observes the incident, because they'd have the best information.
Absolutely.
Right there, and I guess just to clarify as well, my expectation of us is that if we see any issues with any of our residents, that you can be assured if it's something that's causing concern for you, it's concern for me, but I can't deal with what I don't know about. So if I have a family member or visitor coming in here and causing undue hardship to a resident, that individual, no matter who they are, will no longer be permitted in here until we get to the bottom of what's happening. I will get involved and support you on that. So I would want you to call adult protection, but I also want you to let me know and let us know if we can do something about it. Because you're right, absolutely, you might not be able to respond as quickly as I can, and we can work together to deal with it. So it's about teamwork.
This is Neil.
Hi, Neil.
How are you, sir?
Can you stand up with me here?
No.
No? Just gonna go? Okay.
Not over your toes.
I usually have him down in the office working by now, so he's probably comfortable for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Those are really good questions. So when you're not sure, have the conversation. That's why we need, like I said, communication, transparency, honesty, whatever you saw, whatever you observed, we're moving forward. It's really important that we work as a team. So when you get coming in here, or if you have adult protection coming in here, or Tim or I, we're all part of the same team. Our role is to make sure that Madame Leblanc is well taken care of. And that's what you do on a daily basis. Okay? I have a little video that kind of summarizes everything that we've talked about. The video is older, but I really like it because these are actors, and it was done in the Shediac area, which is our backyard, our friends, our colleagues, okay? So instead of showing you something that happens or that was developed in the States, it's here. It's our community. So I'm going to show that to you. You will have a copy of that. I gave some copies to Lynn, and they were going to put it on a...
ITASA.
I don't know that word. Anyway, they're going to put it out somewhere where you have access to it. And so we're going to look at this for about 20 minutes, then we'll take a short break, come back, sing, and then we'll finish our afternoon. Okay? Yes, we sing very well. Right, Tim? Maybe we can turn off the lights. Would that help? Can we do that?
population is being signaled by a decreased percentage of youths and an increased percentage of elderly persons.
Good night.
Good night.
In 2001, 1 in 8 Canadians was 65 years or older. By 2026, 1 in 5 Canadians will be 65 years or older. The aging of our population is a complicated issue that not only impacts the well-being of elderly Canadians, but also has repercussions in areas that involve the entire population, such as healthcare, labor market, and public finances. Briefly, the aging of baby boomers, and therefore of the population, will lead to many changes associated with an increased demand for services and the ability to pay for services. Elder abuse is any action or lack of action that harms the health or well-being of an older person. Any action or behavior that results in harm or distress to someone is called abuse. There are many different forms of abuse, including psychological and verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial exploitation, and neglect. The following story is a fictional account of various types of abuse. We'll be meeting Arthur, a widower of only a few months, as well as his son George and his partner Marge, who have moved into the paternal home.
Where's the newspaper? Where's the newspaper?
I thought you had read it. It's in the cat's litter box. If you say yes to this schedule, I'll be stuck with the old guy. You're lucky and spoiled to have us here.
I want some orange juice. I want some orange juice.
What do you want now? It's because we're trying to talk here? And besides, you had an orange juice. I hate to say it, but the guy doesn't smell good. And he's still in his pajamas, and it's past 2. You and your great ideas. I told you it wasn't worthwhile to move in and care for him. It's more of a problem than anything else.
How can we tell if an older person is being abused or neglected or both? Here are a few signs for concern. The older person feels nervous in the presence of a care provider or family member and avoids eye contact, presents unexplained physical injuries, makes improper use of sedatives, alcohol, or medication, has suicidal tendencies, cannot explain the loss of personal possessions, never has money for everyday expenses, makes sudden changes in his or her will, makes unusual withdrawals from his or her account while bills are unpaid, suffers from poor nutrition, has an unkempt appearance, has medical problems that remain untreated. While we must not be too hasty in our conclusions, these signs of abuse must be taken seriously. Let us return to Arthur's story.
Hello? Yes. Oh, he's losing it at times. He seems to be getting more confused. He reads much less. Yeah, well, oh, you look, I'm busy. You'll have to call another time. Yes, it's expensive, quite expensive, but it helps to have some money from the father-in-law. Okay, I'll see you there tonight. Bye.
What do you mean, see you there tonight? I had plans.
You take care of your father for once. I've had enough. He can't even help himself.
I want some orange juice. And that's not nice. That's not nice. Don't fight. Don't get mixed up in this. We're doing our best for you. Here's your orange juice. You could take a little stroll, you know, from your rocking chair to the fridge. We're not your slaves.
Psychological abuse is any action that is detrimental to a person's dignity or self-esteem. Here are some examples of psychological abuse: threatening to abandon the senior, insulting the senior, shouting or using foul language, preventing the senior from entertaining visitors, telling the senior that he or she causes a lot of problems, treating the older person as a servant, treating the older person as a child, demanding babysitting services for grandchildren, excluding senior from important events, not respecting seniors' human rights. Any abusive action that results in physical pain or injury is called physical abuse. Older persons can be subjected to several different forms of physical abuse. Here are some examples: pushing, shoving, or hitting the older person. Excessive restriction of the older person's movement through administration of tranquilizers or other medications. Restraining the older person in their room or in their chair. Depriving the older person of his or her medication. Improper use of medication. Too many prescriptions. Too much medication. Improper administration. Getting back to Arthur, an elderly neighbor, who also is a family friend, has just returned from a long trip down south, and she comes in to visit with Arthur.
Hello, I'm back from Florida. 8 months went by pretty fast. I knit some socks for Arthur. Do I have to call before dropping by?
Yes, it's better that you call. He's really gone downhill.
Yeah, since Mom died, Dad really went downhill. We do our best to care for him, but he's not always easy to handle.
How are you? You seem to be having a tough time. I've moved now. I'll be able to come and see you more often. Mary's gone, but I'm going to take care of you. I brought you some socks. The colors goes well with your pajama.
Thank you. You're nice.
I'll be back to see you. How about if I drop by Tuesday after supper? I'm almost finished knitting a nice scarf.
Oh, I don't think that's possible. You see, he's getting too confused. I don't think it's good that he gets too many visitors. Okay, bye now. Hey, and don't bother with the scarf. He doesn't go out anymore.
Come on, what's her name? She'll be visiting all the time.
Make a man of yourself. It's time.
Another form of abuse to which seniors may fall victim is financial exploitation, described as any inadequate use of an elderly person's money or possessions without that person's full knowledge or agreement. These are some of the actions that fall under financial exploitation: stealing money, pension benefits, or other possessions; refusing to place a senior in an extended care facility in order to retain access to seniors' pension benefits; omitting to refund a loan when senior requests it; forcing senior to leave his or her home to benefit from its sale; forcing senior to sell off personal possessions; having the senior sign legal documents that he or she does not fully understand; forcing senior to give money to family members; family members refusing to leave senior's home when senior requests it; family members sharing senior's home without paying their share of the expenses; family members putting pressure on seniors to buy alcohol or drugs; not allowing senior to buy clothes or other necessary items.
I want you to sign the house over to me. You've got to sign. You've got to sign. Go ahead, do it. Mom You will never know what the government can do. Go on, sign. They'll free you up. Take a load off your shoulders. You know I'll take care of everything. Nothing here is going to change. You're not the only one in the family. I don't know why you have the nerve to say that. After all we've done for you. We even moved here so you wouldn't be alone. And you can't even say thank you? Would you prefer that we leave? You know you can't stay here alone. Marge is doing her best. We're struggling because of you. Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me like that. I haven't teach you to talk to me like that.
George! George, he's fallen from his chair again.
This brings us to another prevalent form of abuse, neglect, which is the lack of care or attention by a care provider towards an older person who is unable to take care of his or her personal needs. Neglect of an older person, whether through deliberate action or subconsciously, occurs when a caregiver does not provide a senior with one of the following: food, clothing, and adequate personal care, security and comfort, a healthy environment, medical care and nursing care, items required for personal hygiene, sufficient space to ensure respect of privacy, transportation to appointments, outings or visits. Neglect also includes leaving a disabled senior alone too long or outright abandonment. What type of person can suffer abuse? Anyone can be a victim of abuse or neglect, no matter what their age, their level of activity, their income, or their cultural background. Abuse can occur whether the older person is living alone, in a family setting, or in a nursing home. What type of person can abuse a senior? The abuser is generally someone that the older person knows and trusts. However, anybody can be an abuser. A family member, a spouse, a friend, a caregiver, or a care facility employee, someone who provides services to the older person, a landlord, a stranger, a telemarketer. Arthur is now admitted to the hospital feeling weak. His son and Marge come for a visit.
How are you? You know, the day before yesterday when you fell, the phone rang at the same time. It was the results for your evaluation, and the nursing home has a place for you. We can't take care of you anymore. Sign, while you're still clear-minded. It's going to be better this way.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a hand. I'll go get the doctor.
Hi, how are you?
I signed the house away. I shouldn't have done it. I don't know if it was a good thing to do. He's not the only one in the family. My own son wants to send me to a nursing home. He wants to get rid of me.
What are you talking about?
Good afternoon.
How to put a stop to abuse. Telling families family members and friends about it, confiding in a doctor, a counselor, a priest, or a minister, calling Adult Protection, Department of Social Development, calling the police, asking the advice of appropriate professionals. For example, calling the Beausejour Family Crisis Resource Center Incorporated for help. Their services are confidential and free of charge.
You're gonna love it at the nursing home. You're gonna make new friends.
Can I have my newspaper? I forgot it in the room.
We'll get you another one downstairs.
Why do you bother reading all that stuff anyway? Is it the obituaries that interest you?
To report cases of abuse or neglect, call Adult Protection, Department of Social Development at 1-866-426-5191.
Oh, how are you? How are you, handsome?
Oh, you came to see me. So nice of you. You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad.
Do they treat you right here? You look much better.
George didn't come to see me. And my other two sons are far away, and you're the only one who come to see me.
I brought you a nice scarf.
Oh,
You want to come and get some fresh air?
oh, thank you. It's so nice of you. Thank you so much. Oh my God, it's soft.
Here we go.
If you feel you're a victim of abuse, you must seek help. Abuse and neglect can never be justified.
Comments? Questions? Did you see some indicators? A lot of them. Okay. Yes, he is a lot happier. Yeah.
If they to call someone, the person that would have to call it, he wouldn't have access to the phone or the number or.
Exactly. When he was in the hospital, he had access to the doctor. Once he was in the nursing home, you are his eyes again and his voice, so you would be able to see how, what's his name, and his wife Marge, what's his name, I can't remember. Anyway, George, you think I've seen the video so often. George and Marge, the behavior when they come around, so yeah.
Elderly lady, she could.
The elderly lady could have, yeah, if she had observed anything. Mhm.
But if she had known, but that generation would not be aware of all this stuff.
Exactly. And that's why we need to keep the conversation going. We need to talk about it. We need to show indicators to people, family members. I guess it's a song that I want to dedicate to all of you because of the wonderful work that you do and the impact that you have on Madame Leblanc's life on a daily basis. I want to dedicate it though specifically to maintenance and the ladies that do the house cleaning, because sometimes we have a tendency to forget you guys. I just want to make sure that you're not forgotten today. So I promised a song. I'm not going to sing. I'm sure you're grateful, and I'm going to get. Oh, you thought you were really going to sing? No, I'm I'm guaranteeing you this is gonna be better than me.
Good morning. Got you some coffee. Beautiful flowers.
I have all this left for myself.
I know, but he doesn't come here.
Thank you. You did good today.
Brandon,
Yes, ma'am.
have a good day.
Thank you, ma'am.
I work down in Asbury Hills. Minimum wage, but it pays the bills. Cleaning floors, leading hymns on Sunday. Catherine Davis, room 303. The sweetest soul you ever could meet. I bring her morning coffee every day. She calls me Raymond. She thinks I'm her son. Tells me get washed up for supper before your daddy gets home. She goes on about the weather, how she can't believe it's already 1943. She calls me Raymond. That's alright by me. She talks about clothes on the line this summer rain, Christmas morning and Thanksgiving prayer, and stories of the family that I never had. Well, sometimes I find myself wishing I'd been there. When she calls me Raymond, she thinks I'm her son. Tell me get washed up for supper before your daddy gets home. She goes on about the weather, how she can't believe it's already 1943. She calls me Raymond. That's alright by me. There's a small white cross in Arlington. Reads Raymond Davis, 71. Until she can see his face again, I'm gonna fill in the best I can. When she calls me Raymond, she thinks I'm her son. Tells me get washed up for supper before your daddy gets home. She goes on about the weather, how she can't believe it's already 1943. She calls me Raymond. That's alright by me. She calls me Raymond. That's alright by me.
Yeah. Comments?
Good song.
What song?
It's a super song. It's to demonstrate how important everybody that works at Madame Leblanc's residence is important to make sure that all of her needs are met. So thank you. I dedicate that song to you, and especially to the people that do maintenance and house cleaning, just because sometimes we forget you, okay?
What's the singer's name? I can't read.
Brett Eldridge.
So is it okay that if someday I come into work and I don't feel like working, I just look at the residents and just gather them and sing for them?
The question I have is, can you sing? Okay.
I think that would be fantastic. we have to be.
I have no problem calling you Raymond either. I've been called up with. And I knew that, yes, I knew that.
Before Jeanette continues, I had one person who didn't sign in. Is there anyone else who didn't sign paper?
I did. You did.
Hang in there, Jen, Jess.
All right. Wow. All right, we need the, sure. I'm really not used to this mic. Okay. So the next hour, we're going to be spending time, we talked about Madame Leblanc. Who's Madame Leblanc? What are the indicators, whether it's physical, behavioral, who are the abusers, what could happen to Madame Leblanc? Now we're going to be talking about us. We're going to be talking about what we do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, 15 times a day, 100 times a day, that we prevent abuse and neglect. I'm going to be giving you a list of indicators or factors that can precipitate abuse or neglect. What I'm asking you is if you feel that there's things that you can improve at your next shift, do it, okay? If you think that you're doing just fine, tap yourself on the shoulder and say good work and continue the good work, all right? There's some things that are based on studies, and I'll talk to you about them as we proceed, but the reason I chose those studies is because they give us lists and they give us tools in order to help us improve. Cool. So, we're going to talk with factors which precipitate abuse and neglect in residential facilities. What we know is if these things exist, and I'm going to go through them one by one, it enables, it maintains, it nurtures abuse or neglect. If we don't have that, we're preventing. Okay? And you're going to see that you're preventing on a regular basis. Okay? So if we have a poor working environment, it has a direct impact on Madame Leblanc. I'm going to be talking about, so bear with me, clouds and suns, okay? If I walk in here, or I walked in here today and I wasn't in the mood to be here, and I was complaining, and I was humming and hawing, and I didn't want to be here, and I don't feel like meeting with you guys, and I don't like you guys, and I'm really not in a good mood, and you see where my cloud is going? Okay, and I'm bringing the cloud down, you're coming with me, okay? And we all have days, we all have our life, we all have our stuff. What is important is that my stuff stays in my car in the parking lot before I come in here and I get my sunshine out. People are going like this, so I'm assuming this crazy woman, you guys are getting what I'm saying? Okay. So when my sunshine comes out, then I'm brighter. And I can get the sunshine out for other people. So sometimes we have clouds, but we need to get rid of those clouds real quick so that they don't spread on Madame Leblanc's street. Because it's her street, it's her home, that's where she lives. So Apple Grove, I think I have it right this time, I've been calling it all sorts of stuff. Okay. Apple Grove, that's her street, she lives in one of those houses on Apple Grove. When there's sunshine, she shines also. If we're all there as clouds, it has a direct impact on her. So positive workforce environment, we prevent abuse and neglect. Can you see my points? Okay. Inadequate preparation of staff. Very important that we prepare our staff to deal with Madame Leblanc's needs. Madame Leblanc comes here. For people that worked here a long, long time, if you remember 30 years ago, Madame Leblanc would come in her car, and she had made the decision, I'm going to live at Spencer's. With her nice little suitcase, her car, driving her car, she parked and she came in. It was her decision. Today we have Madame Leblanc who, because of something that happened to her, it's not necessarily her decision. Either her health is worse, her family can't take care of her anymore. When she comes in here, she comes in by ambulance with a big, thick file, this big, of medical, physical, psychological, psychiatric problems. Am I right when I say that? Okay. So we have to make sure that our staff are well prepared to take care of Madame Leblanc. So someone this morning talked about assessing Madame Leblanc. There's a team here that meet the individual, meet the family, have the medical reports, go through the file, make sure we understand the whole thing. This beautiful pink Madame Leblanc ball, okay, with her file, so we understand who she is, so we can meet her needs effectively. There's adjustments, but real quick, because you're there and you see her and you take care of her and you're there every day, you know what she likes, you know what she doesn't like, you know what impacts are positive and negative on her. So the better prepared we are to meet Madame Leblanc's needs, the better we're going to be taking care of her. So far so good? We have to have staff development. Like these days today, we have an opportunity to talk about neglect and abuse. We have an opportunity to talk about prevention. The more training we have, and that's homework I'm giving to management, the more training we have, the better prepared we are with dealing with Madame Leblanc. If we have Madame Leblanc that comes into this facility to live with us, and she has Huntington, okay? I remember at one point, I was working in the Shediac area, we had this individual who was going to a facility with Huntington. I knew nothing about that illness, the home knew nothing about that illness. We made sure that we had Huntington Society come, speak with the staff, really explain what it is, and assess him and explain to us what Huntington means for this individual. So they gave us the tools to work effectively with this individual. So that's important that we bring in resources, and we have all those little free resources in the community that can come out and give us a hand. Whether it's about adult abuse, Jeanette, I'm free, okay? Whether it's society, Alzheimer's Society, whether it's Huntington, it doesn't matter, mental health, we have all of these people that we can bring in to give us a hand to deal with Madame Leblanc's difficulties. Okay? We talked about Madame Leblanc's increasing dependency on us. Before, Madame Leblanc came with her car, now she comes by ambulance. And that's a big change for the caregivers. We have to understand the aging process. If we don't, we need to teach ourselves. If we can't, then it supports, encourages, nurtures abuse or neglect. We have to have a positive attitude towards Madame Leblanc. Negative attitude, the clouds, okay, has a direct impact on her. When I come to work in her home, it's not about me, it's about her. So I need to put that sunshine on so that it has a positive impact on her. I have to be sensitive to her needs and the family's needs. If I'm insensitive, if we all are, then again, it creates an environment, a poor working environment, a poor living environment for Madame Leblanc, and we have possibilities of abuse and neglect. Positive communication between me and you, me and Madame Leblanc and her other resident. We need to have, I understand there's a hierarchy, I understand that there's rules, regulations, policies, protocols, but it's important that we have positive communication between us and the families and Madame Leblanc. Questions about that slide? When we talked about management this morning, while we weren't here, we talked about legislation, policies, rules, regulations. They send us memos, they send us emails, okay? It's really important that we have that structure. If we don't have structure around Madame Leblanc's home, there's going to be chaos. If I don't know what time I need to show up for work, okay, and what my role, my rules, my regulations are, my responsibilities, then we're encouraging, supporting an environment, poor working environment, which encourages, again, abuse or neglect. That makes sense? So sometimes when we get frustrated with all those rules and regulations, we have to keep that in mind. There's a raison d'être. Lack of community resources and lack of awareness of existing community resources. Precipitating factors of abuse and neglect. So in other words, if we flip that around, we get the community to come visit Madame Leblanc. And you've been doing that. We see cats roaming around here, okay? Every time that I've come here, there was a service. You offer Madame Leblanc, the opportunity to worship whatever religion she wants, because you nurture that here. There's all sorts of different religion, and you make sure that she's able to practice hers. You have people that come in and do walks, exercises, parades. What else do you do that you encourage the community to come in? Entertainment. There was people playing the piano this morning, singing.
Halloween party every year.
Halloween party. What else do you do?
There's Friends program, there's coffee programs, there's Kim's Cafe program.
What's that Kim's Cafe program?
It's a group of women from, I'm not sure where, in nursing home, I think section 1, they all eat with one of the recreation.
Perfect.
Yeah, they set it up fancy.
Cool. Okay. Pink ladies. Cool. What else?
Men's group.
And what does that do, men's group?
Oh, they get together once a week, have coffee,
Okay.
have lunch.
Perfect.
Bocce, that's a big one. Bingo for the residents. They all
Cool.
bingo.
Okay.
We give an opportunity at Christmas for the families to come and have
Super.
Christmas dinner.
Super. I hear that great decorations around Christmas time here. There's a big tree. Everybody gets a gift. Every resident gets a gift.
There's like 10 trees.
10 trees? Okay.
Everywhere.
I heard about one. Okay, that's good.
Every wing has a tree and there's
Super. Okay.
For every new resident that comes in now, we're giving the family member a free meal to have with them.
Yes.
Help them get settled in here and spend some time with their loved ones.
Super.
That's one of the good reasons.
Super. What about palliative care? Do you do palliative care? When I heard, this is, now I don't know if it's rumors or not, this is what I heard from other groups, that when there's palliative care, you take care of the family, the loved ones, to make sure that they're able to care for the person in their last hours. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. What else do you do? Things that are not in your job description. Cool, super things, like bringing your cats in, bringing your kids in, talking to Madame Leblanc, sharing. Huh?
Feeding the squirrels.
Feeding the squirrels? Okay. Good job. All right. Okay. If you remember one of the components of who is the victim, it increases the victimization if the person is isolated. So if we take away the isolation, we open up our Madame Leblanc's home to all of you, to your families, to the community, for people coming in. It breaks isolation, so we're preventing, right? Anyway, I heard all sorts of other stuff I can't even remember. But anyway, you guys do a fantastic job. Oh, Lee.
What's coming up soon is the baby program. So we're just in the throes of making sure that we have everything available. So we're actually going to have infants coming in from the community in a program that's being set up by recreation. So
That is fantastic. Yes, so Madame Leblanc and Arthur can cuddle and take care of. That's beautiful. That's really nice.
And an insurance carrier here in town, Moncton, got in touch with me a little while ago, and they raised a little bit of money. So Mary's actually ordered iceless curling for the residents as well. We put this in order, we cover the rest of the cost of management, and that should be here in the next couple of weeks for the residents to do as well. So, and plus, just to let everybody know, we get a lot of air miles for the contract we have with Loppens, substantial, close to 30,000 air miles a year. And those air miles, as of effective today, will be used for one sole purpose, which is to give back to the residents. So I want you folks to come back to me and to the team here with ideas of what we can use those things for, because medications, as we all know, are driven by the residents. Therefore, anything benefits that should go back to the resident 100%. And that decision has been made. I didn't know how many we had until this morning.
Nice.
I saw the contract. I thought we'd take out 225 off the floor, but we didn't have enough. So I decided to use them for the resident instead, which I think is the appropriate action with everything we do here. The little, and I've said this to some of you, some of you haven't met for the first time yet, but I'll make a statement which I think applies to all this. Spencer Home is an old building. It's not the prettiest building in the world, and we all know that. But the care is going to be second to none here, and I believe it is. That's the whole purpose of this. It's not about us, me, Victor Shea. It's not about management. It's about the we, which there is no us and them here. There's a we, and we're all pushing and rolling in the same direction. We're not always going to get along, We're not always gonna agree, but we always will have the resident at the forefront of every decision we make. So a little thing like air miles, which is a huge benefit to us, is of no benefit to anybody down the hall on a go forward. It's about 200 people that live in this house. And you folks have to inform the process, because I think people have been asking for that for quite some time. I wasn't aware of that, of course, because I wasn't here, but the change has been made effective today, and that will be on a go-forward basis. So it's a little thing that makes a heck of a lot of difference to somebody. Reading a resident at the door, meeting them where they're at, and making this feel like home helps with their transition. And that's my job, is help, as I said, help you guys and girls do your jobs a little bit easier. So,
Cool. Thank you. Good job. All right, so that's a great example of bringing the community in. Air miles. Good job, being innovative. Wonderful. Lack of knowledge of how to best work with or hear my behavior. I'm going to give you an example. Moi, Ginette, I'm touchy-feely, okay? So if you see me, I'll give you hugs and hold your hand, and I can walk in here with Madame Leblanc and sit down with her and hold her hand and have a chat with her, and I give her a hug, and she's okay with that. She likes that. That's a relationship that I have with Madame Leblanc. I do the same thing with Madame Cormier. When I do that with Madame Cormier, she feels that I'm intrusive. She doesn't like it. I'm in her bubble. She doesn't like me, okay? And when I do that, it's certainly not, I'm not aware that I have that impact on her. So your role as my colleagues is to tell me that it's okay with Madame Leblanc, but it's not okay with Madame Cormier. And as a colleague, I need to accept that so that I stop and I have a different type of relationship with Madame Cormier, which is okay for her. So sometimes our behavior has a negative impact without even us realizing. So it's important that we support each other in saying that, because we're here for Madame Leblanc and Madame Cormier. That makes sense? Okay. Imbalance of power, we talked about that. When there's imbalance of power, automatically the fact that I care for Madame Leblanc, I'm in a position of trust. We're not equals. Unfortunately, we treat her very well, respectfully, but automatically there's an imbalance of power. So if I get engaged in a relationship with her physically, sexually, financially, I'm crossing that line, okay? And I can become an abuser. All right, so I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Again, you know that, but I'm paid to say that, so that's why I'm saying it. Bon. The more we can get Madame Leblanc's family, friends, community involved in her home, the better we're preventing. I'm going to try to be polite. Lack of common decency. We all have people in our lives that have no common sense. Know what I'm talking about? Okay. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have colleagues that come, okay, and that's the situation. So what our role is as colleagues is to make sure that we support, we maintain, we encourage, we model best behavior, positiveness, sunshine, so that we get that person on board. Sometimes, after all of that, that's not going to happen. So that person has strengths, and maybe the best place for that person would be to work somewhere else. Okay? Violence in residential facilities. This is a study. I'm not going to go through the study. You have access to this, and they're going to be put it on the word that everybody says that I don't understand. So, violence is violence is violence is violence. So, whether it's violence between you and I, me and Madame Leblanc and Monsieur Cormier, it doesn't matter. Madame Leblanc towards me, it's violence. So if there's a tolerance 0, we start there. We need to work as a team. If there's behaviors that we need to address, we need to do it transparently, honestly, as a team, and make sure that we can support each other in diminishing the violence that occurs, like situations like you brought forward. Okay? There's a lot of slides. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want to give key points. There's a study that was done in the States, and the reason I use this one is because, where am I? It was done in the States, and the reason I like this one is because it gives us categories of indicators of abuse and neglect in residential facilities. So if we can prevent all of this, we're preventing abuse and neglect. What they did is they took one state, okay, and they looked at all of the nursing homes in that state. Then they looked at all of the deaths that occurred in those nursing homes. There were two kinds of deaths. One, the natural kind, Madame Leblanc was 175 and she passed, okay? So those were the normal. Then you had the other deaths that were due to abuse and neglect. So they focused on these. Deaths that occurred in nursing home due to abuse and neglect. What they discovered is with all of those deaths that occurred due to abuse and neglect, there was 4 categories of indicators that existed. So if you take away those indicators, you're preventing. You're going to see that you're preventing, okay? So if there's little things that you find that you could improve at your next shift, give yourself a mental note and do that, okay? So what they noticed for the condition, the quality of care, is that there was documented but untreated injuries. So yeah, there was documentation that Madame Leblanc broke a hip, but nothing was being done to help Madame Leblanc. Undocumented injuries and fractures, multiple untreated and undocumented pressure sores. You're very good here at documenting and doing something. As soon as there's a little redness on Madame Leblanc somewhere, you're taking care of it, okay? The medical orders were not followed. There was poor oral care, poor hygiene, and lack of cleanliness of the residents, okay? Malnourished residents who have no documentation for low weight. So you had people that were, their weight, they were malnourished. Merci. And they didn't know why. There was bruising on non-ambulatory resident, okay? That's an indication of abuse. Whether it is or not, it's an indication. Bruising in unusual location, like we talked about the bruising that is unusual for Madame Leblanc. There were statements from families concerning adequacy of care. The families had concerns, but nothing was being done. And there was observation about the level of care also, and nothing was being done. So you see all of the prevention that you're doing already, okay? Questions about that one? That's one of the categories that they found in that study. So remember, those are the categories, that's one of the categories that when there was death due to abuse and neglect, this is what they found. They also found the indicators of the facility. For example, the unchanged linens, okay? That doesn't happen here. Strong odors of urine and feces. Occasionally, okay? We have bugs that go around, okay? But we know that. But this is on a regular basis. Trash cans that had not been emptied. Well, I've been walking around here for the last 2 weeks, for 4 days. I haven't seen a trash can that was over full. Okay, so that's a really good indicator that we're doing a good job in maintaining Madame Leblanc's home. Food issues, unclean cafeteria. If I walk in there or Get walks in there and she looks in the fridge and there's fuzzy things growing in there, it's an indication, okay? So, but this is not, you got an A+ 5-star on your inspection, so everything is squeaky clean. There were documented problems in the past and nothing was done. So if we're not doing any of this, that's fantastic, we're preventing. If there's little things that you find that you need to improve, let's improve at our next shift. They also found inconsistencies in the medical reports, that the statements that were made by the staff, and the observation of the investigation. Inconsistencies in statement among the groups, inconsistency between the reported time of death and the actual time of death. You reported Madame Leblanc passed today, and in reality she had passed 2 days ago. Okay? So, in order to prevent all of this, or to stop all of this, if we have an open communication, we go in, we tell the truth, we're open, transparent, honest, that's how it is, okay? And we have those conversations, then we're doing prevention. Can you see the dots? We're connecting them? Okay. The last category that they gave us is that they found in every instance of those that during the investigation, staff, not all of the staff, some staff, okay, followed the investigator really too closely and was trying to control the investigation. I want you to talk to her, but not her, and only her tomorrow, and do you know what I mean? They weren't giving us the medical reports. It doesn't happen here. We walk in the door and everything is open. You make sure that we have the information. All of it is there. There's cooperation, there's transparency, there's honesty. People were verbal or non-verbal. They were avoiding us. And also there was a lot of lack of knowledge or concern about Madame Leblanc. If you worked on Apple Grove Street for the last 6 years, and Madame Leblanc has been living there for the last 6 years, and I walk in and I ask you, is she mobile? You should be able to answer that question, right? If you don't know anything about Madame Leblanc and you've been her caregiver for 6 years, then there's an issue, all right? So that would be indicators. Doesn't happen here. Questions, concerns, comments about those 4 categories? Those are really good indicators. So that doesn't exist here. Look at the wonderful prevention work that you're doing. Am I going forward or backward? No. Provincial statistics, just to situate you in the province, in year 2008, we received 838 referrals for adult protection in the community, whether it's Madame Leblanc living here, the hospital, special care homes, in her home in the community. And in 2015-16, we received 2351. There's an increase, a couple of components. We have a growing population of vulnerable adults. We also have society who's reporting more, okay? So that's why we're seeing an increase in. I just wanted you to know where you stand, okay? This is not here, it's the whole province.
You think
Okay?
there's actually more use going on, or just being more aware of it?
A little bit of both. Yeah. We have Madame Leblanc, who's older, with more needs. So that's one component. But we also have people in Madame Leblanc's life in society that are calling in more. So there's all of those components. Yes?
Could it also be that there's more Madame Leblancs now than there was?
Exactly. We have a growing population, yeah, of vulnerable adults. Relationship of trust between client and caregiver. We talked about that a little bit, but there's a couple of points I want to make. We talked about sexual relationship, financial favors, accepting gifts and all of that. It puts us in a position where it could become abuse or neglect. One of the challenges and homework that we gave to the administration, and I'll get Lynn to talk to you a little bit about that, we want to make sure that you're well protected. You understand that when you take care of Madame Leblanc, her family sees you like the angel that's taking care of mom, right? And there's a special relationship, and Madame Leblanc really likes you, and you develop that relationship. And sometimes the family really want to say thank you by giving you a gift, okay? For example, Madame Leblanc wants you to have her special ring, and the family is in agreement, and everybody's in agreement. What you need to remember is Jeanette from Ottawa, okay, who comes here once a year, she's going to have an issue with the fact that you have mom's ring, okay? Now, that's her way of perceiving things. It doesn't mean that you abused or neglected Madame Leblanc in order to get the ring. But Jeanette's going to perceive it as, when things go well, there's no problem with Jeanette. But when things don't go well, there's a problem with Jeanette. Jeanette will say, you harassed my mother, you made her cry, you manipulated her to get the ring. You manipulated my sister to get that ring. Then what happens is that we have to get involved because Jeanette calls us to say that you stole Madame Leblanc's ring or that you, etc. So it's how we perceive, okay? And we want to make sure that you're protected. So that's one thing about accepting gifts. So I know that there's protocols, and then maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because I wouldn't want any of you to be put in a position where you need to justify why you have Madame Leblanc's ring. And I'm using a ring, it could be anything though, okay?
We do have a policy in place, and I imagine staff here know that. It's, again, it looks at an unequal distribution of power or passive power where, you know, if you need a ring, or you might not get the care, you might not be able to go to the dining room tonight, those kinds of things. Not things that we do, but we always have to have a policy to cover those just in cases, and this is one of them. So, policy is there, and it states very explicitly that we do not take gratuities from the family. Mind you, we have family who will bring in cookies for everybody on the way. And we certainly, you know, when the family is bringing those in, they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart, and we accept those graciously. Everyone knows that the best way to a man's heart and a nurse's heart, and a man who is a nurse, is through the stomach. So, you know, it's the chocolates, it's the, it's those kinds of things.
So you're being clear with families when they come in that we're not going to be accepting gifts. Okay. Because we don't want you to be put in a position where you need to say to the family, I can't. So they're being clear, they're made clear, and it's on them, okay, to make sure that you're protected, okay?
Even in the dining, yeah, she says, even in the dining room, they want a tip.
And I tell them, no, no.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's because they really appreciate the work that you do. And I get that, it's just we don't want you to be put in a situation. They tip at the restaurant, they want to tip you. That's nice of them.
Well, you know, we had a family this past Christmas who actually wanted to help one of the staff members out. It was a student who was here. And gave him a check for $100 to help with his schooling. And the family was very, very adamant that this is what they wanted to do, this is what they had to do, and they said, just keep it, you know. And of course, the staff member brought it to our attention, and so we had a conversation with the family again.
Yes.
That as much as we appreciate that, and that you acknowledge the great care that the residents receive, that we can't take those, so.
No. So it's important that we protect you in not having to be in the position where the line is crossed. One way would be to ask the family to give a card with all of the nice things, and we can photocopy it and put it in your files and recognize you. Systemic abuse, it's not a fun topic because it includes all of us. So all I can ask you to do is, as we notice some incidents of systemic abuse, that we bring it forward, that we talk about it, that we bring it to our superiors so that together we can make an impact. And I'm going to give you an example. Madame Leblanc lives at home, and she is continent with a routine. Okay. So for whatever reason, Madame Leblanc can't live at home anymore, so she comes and lives here in her new home. And we decide, because of lack of staff or whatever it is, that we put her in incontinence supplies. Okay? We have to ask our questions, are we meeting our needs as a facility, or are we meeting Madame Leblanc's needs? If we're meeting our needs, we could be looking at systemic abuse. If we're meeting Madame Leblanc's needs, then that's fine. So it's really to be aware of those situations so that we can make note of them, that we're making people aware, and we make sure that we're not playing into it. Okay?
What else?
Societal beliefs. Jeanette, the worker, comes in here, and I have my own set of values, right? I have my race, my religion, my sexual orientation, my language, I'm me, okay? What is important when I come and work in Madame Leblanc's residence is that my societal or my beliefs are left in my car, because when I come here, it's about Madame Leblanc, okay? One thing again that I've noticed is that you give Madame Leblanc the chance to worship in her own religion, and I know that you have several religions here that are that she's able to participate in, so that's great. This is for level 2, so I'm going to go flip through until we get to the nursing home part. So your role and responsibility to report is, as we talked about earlier, because we're under the umbrella of social development and that we've signed contracts through the protocol with you, you have a moral responsibility to report adult abuse if you suspect or you know, and neglect. I know that there's major incidents also that needs to be reported, so can you please explain to your staff exactly what that means and what they are so that we're all clear?
So when we're looking at a major incident, it's one where there has been some kind of an alter in the condition of the residents. So when I say that they've had a fall and have to go to the hospital, there's a break, somebody has eloped through the door, there is perhaps a resident conflict with another resident conflict that has resulted in them perhaps striking out, anything that happens that we can't explain. If there's a bruising and we aren't sure how it happened, if we suspect that there is some kind of situation that we need to address because we don't know the meaning behind. There are always a chance of an accident happening here, and we are human. We're bound to have accidents happen, and it's the times that those accidents are brought to our attention so that we can say, yes, this happened, what can we do to improve the next time so that the accident doesn't happen? But if we're not made aware of that and someone presents with some kind of an alter in their normal for where they are with us, then we report.
So is that clear for everybody in terms of major incidents? Not necessarily adult protection, but major incidents? It could be both. It could be major incidents, could become adult protection, but not necessarily. Okay? And you understand what the protocols are. If you don't, it's important to say it so that we can make sure that you have the proper protocols to follow. Because again, that prevents, okay? What else do we have? Prevention mechanism, what is very important is that we understand what the concerns of the residents are. The more we know Madame Leblanc, the more we have a relationship with her, the more she's going to be talking to us about those lemon muffins that Jean-Guy makes, right? So, and if there's anything more than the muffins, then she'll be able to disclose. So it's very important that we make it open so that she's able to tell us. Someone here last week said, Madame Leblanc, when she comes in, she doesn't realize for the first little while that she's able to say, no, I don't like that, or I don't want this, or I like it this way. But then after a while, she starts saying, I don't like those muffins, I like my covers like this under my bed, I like my teddy bears stuffed up right there. This is because you made it possible for her to discuss her wants and her likes. So that's opening up the conversation. So that's really good work on you guys. Staff development is a big one in order to prevent. Again, if we encourage everybody that works in Madame Leblanc's home to participate to every session, it gives us tools to work with Madame Leblanc. Provide orientation to new staff. If I would come here tonight and do a shift with you, it would be very important that you tell me where to do it, how to do it. You would have to show me, you'd have to be patient with me. I would probably have a lot of questions, and you would have to help me orient myself to make sure that I'm meeting Madame Leblanc's needs effectively. Whether I'm working in the kitchen, in the streets cleaning, whether I'm doing personal care, medical, whatever. It's very important that we orient new staff and that we support them because they're going to be part of Madame Leblanc's team. Yes?
I wanted to ask a question about the last slide down at the bottom. It said recording the concerns if family or residents have concern having a day book. The last three there.
Record the concerns made by the residents in the day book, investigate concerns from residents and their relatives or advocates, record the outcome. Okay, yes?
Okay. Where would the day book be kept? I mean, we have an appointment book that we keep for our nursing staff. We don't have anything ongoing on the units.
Okay.
That goes from whatever to whatever. I'm just wondering.
Well, that's a super important question. Is there any way that we can get some kind of...
We have resident concerns that come to us, so that's usually done on an individual basis. So say one of your residents or one of the family has something that has happened. So usually what happens is the supervisor, being the RNs, they will write them up for them if they're not able to themselves. Sometimes we get them from the families as well, and those are brought to my attention. So then from that point on, I will go forward, see what's happening, see what's going on, see if there's anything that we can do to improve or to find out how a certain situation has taken place, and we work to rectify that. So there is a follow-up through. I think you're kind of saying, Heather, you have no way of knowing if that's done.
I know I've done those. Okay. I know that, but I'm just wondering about this. Do other homes have such a thing that's different than?
I think every home has their own protocols, and I know that there's standards, but as long as someone has the opportunity to write in those types of documents, I think would be fine. But it's up to you to determine, as Madame Leblanc's home, how you're going to make sure that we know, or you know, what her concerns are.
It was new, and it was passed over, and I wanted to know.
Super. Was your question answered?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You're going to have an opportunity to go through the presentation slide by slide if you're interested. So staff development, the well-being of caregivers and residents, it should say Madame Leblanc, to have policies around all forms of abuse and neglect. You have those. Train staff, that's very important. Assess your client's needs. Assess Madame Leblanc, the new resident coming in, and assessing her on a regular basis to make sure that if her needs change, that we know about it, that we can meet her needs. The more we involve the family, activities, programs like you're doing right now, the more we're preventing. The more we model and encourage respect for difference and inclusion. If we get our sunshines out and we accept and we model and we include, we prevent. And use positive ways for maintaining order without devaluating the individual. Vision for a collective response. That's all of that documentation is in the protocol also that I told you this morning that Elaine is making photocopies of. Okay. The residents' rights. There's residents' rights. I think there's 20 of them. Lynn is going to be making copies of them and putting them all over the facility to remind us of what they are and remind Madame Leblanc what her rights are and the families also. Confidentiality is an interesting one. We all live in a small community, okay? We know everybody. Everybody knows Madame Leblanc lives here. They also know that you work with Madame Leblanc, but when we go out in the community and do our shopping, we can't talk about Madame Leblanc. We all know that. She's allowed to form friendship and enjoy them. This one's an interesting one too, okay? And that's important that we maintain that, as long as there's no abuse or neglect. When there's things that change in terms of policies and rules, it would be important, Lynn, that the residents are made aware and the families are made aware, because it's a new rule, it's a new way of doing things, and explain the reason why. Okay? We're good to go? So, prevention of abuse and neglect, it's all about a collective response. It's all of us, okay, having the hand into it, making sure that Madame Leblanc is safe. It doesn't matter what role we play in her home, we all have a responsibility. The more we increase our visits with the community into Madame Leblanc's home, the more we decrease the isolation and the more we prevent. So it's really, again, about bringing people that are important to Madame Leblanc into Madame Leblanc's home. Now, we do have some individuals, some Madame Leblanc, that have no family, that she's alone, or families don't visit for whatever reason. So you become her family, okay? You become her eyes, her voice, and her advocate. Thank you for that word. So that's very important. It's an important role, and everybody in this facility has that role. That's the bulk of the information that I have for you today, but I would really like to go back to the positives that you do here that are not in the rule book and in your job description, and the extra things that you do for Madame Leblanc that makes it a nice quality life for her. Other examples that we talked about, yes.
Maybe an example, like I know Madame Leblanc really likes Kit Kat bars.
Madame Leblanc likes Kit Kat.
I see them on sale, maybe I bring her in one.
That sounds wonderful. Yeah. Kit Kat bars.
Well, Madame Leblanc is not a diabetic.
If she's not a diabetic.
Give her one stick.
One stick, or she would find diabetic some kind of something. What other things do you do? I know we talked a lot.
They just made a bread machine, bread out of a bread machine that probably smells like bread out there.
Cool. That's Jean Guinea's crew.
No.
Who did that? Recreation or baking bread. Love it. Okay. Cool. So that's extra stuff. Yeah. Super. Yeah, some of them don't have. Good for you.
Well, no, my question actually was in the hygiene category. She opened the door. What is hygiene? What's the definition? And what are the necessities? Is it only soap and water? Is it only mouthwash? Is it only lotion? Because deodorant's not supplied, and half these people don't have any. Good point.
Yeah.
And that's my technique. I spent a lot of money on deodorant this last year, and no, they need some deodorant. Air Miles, Lawton sells deodorant. Please buy some.
A+ for that. Okay.
Shelley's done.
Well, I'm glad your frustration is out. There you go.
I don't have listen.
Sunshine Robin. That's what you do.
Yes.
Something that I did about 10 years ago, myself and two of the workers from the activities, we, about 5 residents come over to my house, we had a barbecue.
Wonderful. Cool. Above, yes, yes. Let's bring barbecues in here. Let's do some barbecues. Something like that. Yeah. What else? Deodorant.
Somebody should make an Easter egg hunt.
Easter egg hunt, okay. Are you volunteering?
I'll bring the children. I'll do some chocolate.
Okay.
If somebody wants to hide the eggs, I'll send my children loose in here.
Okay, with Madame Leblanc. With Madame Leblanc, your children, how many children? You said
I have
children's?
3.
Okay,
And they all have a friend.
okay. Cool. Well, that's
You
a
have some
super.
grandchildren, you have some kids, you have some kids. We have a whole bunch here at Heartbeat.
They did the hide Easter egg last year.
Oh, good, they should hide some more.
And they had hide the elf, or find the elf.
Yeah, they're all
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay. So if I come here at Easter, we're gonna have some stir here.
I think so.
Okay, good. All right. What else? What else can we do? Or you're already doing? Someone wanted to sing.
Doreen wanted to sing.
Okay, we're trying to organize a talent show for the staff.
Oh, a talent show for the staff?
Didn't happen though, I don't think there's enough interest.
Okay. Well, we can keep trying. You never know, right?
The residents put on a little play.
The residents put on a play? Cool.
We have a giving tree at Christmas.
What is that? The giving tree?
They have a tree out there, little tags, little ideas what to bring
Okay.
in, and you bring back the gift tag. They're all distributed.
And every resident gets something.
I think so.
Nice.
Pretty much.
Nice. Okay.
I think more for the residents who have no family.
Yeah. To make sure that no one's
To
forgotten.
make sure they do that.
Yes. What about birthdays? Does something happen when they have a birthday?
I brought a cake in for my one of my favorite little lady's birthday for her.
Okay.
My daughter came and sat naked with her.
Cool. Okay.
Or we'll gather the staff and sing them happy birthday. make
Good.
it special.
Okay. Cool. All right. Another thing that I heard last week is during the ice storm in La Péninsule Acadienne, there was some nursing homes there that, of course, there was no power there for 5 or 6 days, right? And they started to get low on medication because everything in La Péninsule Acadienne was closed. So you couldn't go to the store, you couldn't go to the pharmacy. They were running out of insulin, they were running out of medication for the resident, food, etc. And La Péninsule Acadienne got a call from Spencer's and said, how can we help? We can send food, we can send insulin, we can send medication, we can send supply. What do you need? So this is on you guys, okay? So merci for that. You did a wonderful job helping out. What else did I hear? All sorts of stuff. You had to do double shifts when the storm occurred, and you made sure that Madame Leblanc was fed, was clean, had her hearing aids, dentures, and glasses, although you were hungry and tired. And their bath, okay? So that's all on you. Yeah, and you. There's something going on here, but that's okay.
I don't like to talk to crowds, and she's making me.
Oh, okay. So, I gave you a list about what is abuse and neglect, who could be the potential victim, who could be the potential abuser, what adult protection does, and we all work in the same responsibility in taking care of Madame Leblanc. You are here every day, you're her voice, your eyes, and her advocate, okay? And when we need to come here as adult protection is because something occurred and we need to work together, transparently, honestly, openly, and as a team, because we're all in this together. So, and the more we can do it together, the better it's going to be for Madame Leblanc, the more we're preventing. So keep up the good work, and thank you for everything that you do for Madame Leblanc. You'll be getting a certificate once I get a chance to do them and sign them, and thank you very much for letting me entertain you for the last 3 hours.